Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. Finally, I am able to finish this series on where I'm showing how I'm making my fountain pens. Now, this video is mostly about sanding and polishing. Basically, what you see me right now, I'm just going through the sandpapers that I'll be using. At the beginning, you see me looking at some micro mesh that came from an assortment pack that was from 1500 up to 12,000 grit. And then you see me going through some sandpaper cuts or slips or what you wanna call them, that goes from 320 to 3000 and respectively 320, 400, 600, 800, 1000, 1500, 2000 and 3000. And the micro mesh pads that I'm using from that specific assortment pack, which were 18 pieces, goes from 3600 to 12,000. What I usually tend to do, after a while I trim the pads, so that's why they look a little bit smaller in there, because, well, I've been using them for a while and they've been doing their job. I'm only using the pads when I'm sanding the ends of the fountain pens, like the end of the section, cap, or the barrel. And I'm talking about the part where you have the threads on, and that goes inside the cap. So basically what I'm doing right now, just taking the fountain pens apart. I've wetted my sandpaper strips, checking my camera. I don't want to have any surprises like I had in my last video. And right now I'm just sanding the ends of the parts. I'm not actually sanding the actual parts of the pen. What you see right now, it's the pads that I never really used. That came from that pack. As you can see there, that's their actual size. But I never really used them because I'm using sandpaper up to basically 3000. And then I'm just using the pads. This way I don't have to use as much. I have no idea why I wetted them. I don't end up using them. Probably just habit of wetting my things. So yeah, basically when you do this process, you do want to wet sand. Don't dry sand. You'll get way more scratches and not a very good finish. And I started going basically through the strips. I don't pay much attention to this part at sanding the ends because this is not something you'll ever see. And there's usually some wear and tear on these parts as they rub against each other. So just making sure it has like a uniform look. Lightly sand. I have the machine set up, I think, around 15,000 RPM, no, 1500 RPMs. And it's just boring. I guess if you really think about it, you just slowly go through every single sandpaper strip that you have. Don't skip steps. Not much going on here. Yeah, what else can I say before we start sanding actual parts? This video turned out pretty long, so what I did, I actually removed the cap part. How I'm sanding and polishing the cap is very similar with what I'm doing with the barrel and the section. Actually, the cap is the easiest part of the fountain pen to sand and polish because I don't have to think about other things like I'm gonna be doing with the section and the barrel, so I kept those because they were more involved, but the process is exactly the same for all the parts. The only difference between them is level of of how much attention you need to pay to and how much more involved it is. Right now I just finished with the sandpaper and just going with the micro mesh parts. For the section I usually only polish the end of the section where the threads are. I haven't found a way to properly polish the threads, and that's my biggest thing with my fountain pens. I try and clean them as much as I can, but I can't really polish them properly. Because the more you polish them, the more you'll reduce the thread size, you'll wear it down, and then you'll have basically threads that don't really lock in place properly, and they're gonna be very loose. So that's one thing that I usually stay away from. I'm just checking the work here, and I'm just gonna start doing the next section. And yeah, just flipping them away and starting all over again. Same process, nothing changed. And now I'm pretty much done with the second section, and I'm just gonna prepare and start doing, I believe, the barrel. Let's see if I remember correctly. I usually like I said, to keep it in the order of the most difficult to the less difficult. And since sections are usually the most difficult, I usually go with that. Yeah, I picked up the barrel. With the barrels that I'm making, it's a little bit more involved. Because, well, I have to sand the end part, but also the step up between the threads and the actual body of the barrel. But again, the process it's exactly the same for the ends. I only do sandpaper, no polishing yet. The polishing will start once I actually, well, sand and polish the body of each part of the pen. But yeah, same process basically. It's repetitive, boring, tedious maybe, but necessary, at least from my perspective. And I do this with every single fountain pen that I touch. I usually use that hand tool because it helps me to keep it straight, but I usually mostly specifically because of the step up, like you see me doing this right now, that helps me keep it flat with that inner lip in there, which will be hard to do if I would just hold it by hand. When I do the caps, you will see me that actually I remove that hand tool. I don't use it anymore, I just use my hand because it's okay. If you don't have any flat surfaces like I do, like that you have to do this, I don't think you need to use that unless you find it comfortable to work with. The only problem is taking the strip of sandpaper and putting it back on. That takes time, and doing it every time, it's maybe a little bit annoying. But again, an unnecessary annoyance in this case. And yeah, I'm just gonna finish the two barrels, same process, same speed, and then I'll return out the cap part. And yeah, just finishing up with the barrel basically. Hard to see in the video, but yeah, that was just the end. Ended, finished. And now I'm just gonna grab the cap, which this one is much simpler. I don't have to think about a lot. It's pretty much like the section since I only have to think about the end part. So this part will go way faster. I put the hand tool away. I don't need it anymore. And then I'm just gonna use my hand, and because I don't have to put it back and on, off that hand tool, I can go much faster. And yeah, again, same process basically, just going to every grid size until I'm done. And I'll come back when I actually start doing the section. Okay, and now I'm done with the caps, and from here on things are becoming slightly a little bit more involved, because now I'm actually gonna make sure I'm gonna do the polishing of the bodies. What you see right there, it's the Adams Polish H2O Guard and Plus and Glass, sorry. Again, Adams Polishes H2O Guard and Glass, and then that one is used as the final stage. Then I have the Novus 3 and 2, number 3 and number 2. The number 3, which is basically this one right here, the green one, it's for heavy scratch removers, for removing heavy scratches. And the other one that I showed you a little bit earlier, that's for the fine scratch remover. So when I do the polishing, what I use first after the sanding is the heavy scratch remover, then the fine scratch remover, both from Novus, and as the last step I'm using the H2O Garden Glass from Adams Polishes. Another thing to keep in mind, I'm actually using on the polishing part, you'll see me, I'm using a different cloth than the one that I'm using on the right here, the yellow one. Because I don't want to use the contaminated one with a bigger grit in it and by mistake add some scratches into it. Anyway, I'll talk more about it when I get there. Right now I'm back to using the mandrels because, well, I'm gonna start doing the body, and as usual I am starting with the section. Now section for me, it's usually a little bit more involved, now I guess it's a good time to talk about why I'm starting with 320. You don't have to start with 320, it matters a lot on your setup and your cutting tools and all that. Personally, because I'm using the carbide cutting tools, I don't get like a glassy look already finish, and because of the waves that, well, the body and the section gets, I don't get to do a lot of perfect straight lines. Also, I usually get the part up to a certain stage shape-wise, and then I'm using sandpaper to actually shape sculpt the actual part. Rule of thumb, never press hard on the sandpaper, just glide it over the surface and let the sandpaper do its job without you forcing it. Every now and then I do dip it in the water just to clean the slush off of it. And here's the technique that you need to understand, and you have to do it at every single step for the sanding part. You've seen me as it turns, I go side to side and it turns, but that creates like circular scratches on the part. And then right now you see me going side to side slowly, basically putting like vertical scratches on the part, trying to remove those circular scratches that creates as you well move your hand while it spins very fast. Usually the first step, the first grit that you're working with, whatever that size might be, is the most important part. Make sure that everything looks uniform once you're done, and that's what I'm doing, and I'm checking right now. I'm making sure I don't have visible scratches and everything looks uniform, like a matte finish look, but uniform, no actual scratches visible. It is very important to make sure you remove all the visible scratches and everything looks uniform, especially here, because if you don't do that, whatever scratches you leave at this stage, at this grit size, again, whatever your grit size you originally use, it will show at the end throughout the entire process. because it's the largest grid size you use, right? And whatever comes after it won't be able to remove it, especially if it's like a deep scratch. So first two steps, I'm always extremely careful and pay a lot more attention to what I'm doing than all the other strips afterwards. So again, I'm just checking and rechecking. It looks fine, so I'm able to move on to the second strip in here, which is the 400. Same idea. You have to move your hand constantly. Don't keep it in one spot. As you can see, my hand never rests. It keeps on moving. And again, the RPM for this lathe and works for me with this sandpaper. It's around 1500 if I remember correctly, 1500, 1700 or something like that. And again, now I'm going side to side, making sure I remove those circular scratches. And because my section has a little bit of a dip and it's kind of an hourglass, I also do it, you'll see I'm basically doing that part in between to make sure I do hit it with the sandpaper. And then double checking. By the way, the whole process of sanding and polishing, basically what you're doing, you just make your scratches finer and finer and finer and, well, finer. Even after polishing, if you put a microscope to it, you'll still be able to see some micro scratches in there. That's normal. You'll never be able to remove them, but you keep on going, you know, smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until the eye cannot see it. Oh, I had a friend in there. I had a spider, and I didn't want to kill it, so I was just trying to get rid of it. I was like, get out of here. Anyway, double checking the side, making the part, making sure everything is okay. Looks okay, so I move on to the next grid size, which is 600. Same idea. Keep moving your hand. Never keep your hand in the same place for any amount of time. Always move your hand. And because, well, I'm past the two most important strips, I usually go a little bit faster through here. But again, you go side to side afterwards. It's something that you have to get used to it. It is tedious, but it is important. Even when I polish the final part, I still do the same thing. If you don't do this, basically what you'll end up with, you'll see swirls, because you'll never be able to remove the scratches properly. So if you have like dull parts of your pen, or you see swirls at the end, it's one, you probably need to start with smaller grid size, because you don't remove all the scratches with the original or the startup sandpaper that you have size, or you don't do this crisscross sanding, and that'll give you swirls as well. Again, this is real time. I decided to live in real time. This way you get a feeling of what to expect and how long it might take. Some people are faster, they definitely work faster than me. I tend to be a little bit slower, and I want to be more meticulous about what I'm doing. And I want to be happy with the end result. I don't sell a lot of fountain pens because, well, this is not really my main source of income. I do this for fun, and I don't really advertise myself, so not a lot of people come and order from me. So every time I'm making this pen, I'm thinking that I'm making it for myself, and if I'm happy, then that's all that matters. And because I'm usually picky with my things, I tend to be more tedious about this stuff. But yeah, pretty much going through the same process. For both sections, again, checking, double checking. Sometimes, depending on the colors you use, light might be playing tricks on you. And with some colors in the past, I thought that I removed all the scratches, but as you go higher in the grid size, you realize that there were spots that you missed because the light was playing tricks on you. And you have to go back. Like literally, you have to go back. And that's the bad thing about it. That's why I'm insisting the first grid size, you gotta get it perfect. So it gets perfect throughout all the grid sizes. Otherwise, you gotta go back from the beginning. And every time you remove or sand, you basically remove material. So your body parts will get thinner and thinner. And you'll get to a point where if you keep on screwing it up often, the part gets too thin and you cannot use it anymore. You have to basically dump it and build another part. So yeah, again, I'm stressing on this one because it's important. Pay attention to your first grid size, make sure everything is perfectly uniform. And yeah, same process. What do I have? Okay, I'm on 1500 size right now because the purple one usually is 2000 for me. I'm drinking some water, I think, yeah. Or was it coffee? I don't remember. Again, I'm stressing about it because this color, the purple, light purple and purple, they blend in so nicely. Sometimes it's easy to remove parts. And there we go. I just got pissed off because I noticed I have a small scratch somewhere. So here I am going back. This time I'm actually even more gentler because I don't want to remove a lot of material. But yeah, it happens. And that's why I was mentioning is like, you gotta pay attention. And check and double check, and colors sometimes can fool you. The problem was in the valley, basically in that hourglass shape, there was a deep scratch that I didn't notice the first time, and it only started appearing when I got to the higher grid or around 1000. That's when I noticed it. So I'm not basically sanding the whole part now. I'm only focusing more on that valley. I'm not sure how would you call it. I call it a valley, but probably there's a different technical name for it. And that's the punishment. Now I gotta go back and I gotta go back through all the grid sizes. It happens sometimes. Colors will fool you. Especially light colors. Darker colors, you'll get to see the scratches faster and easier. And no hiccups after this one, everything worked out pretty well. I'll come back on the polishing part, but yeah, basically I'm kind of the same step right now. Okay, now I'm done with the sanding part. Right now I'm just preparing for the polishing. Two things happens here. One, I let the part spin for a little bit to make sure that all the water is gone, you know, like air drying it. And then I also increase the size by 1000 RPMs. I always do the polishing at a higher RPM. And right now I'm just putting like a dab of the number 3 heavy scratch remover. And I'm just spreading that polishing compound on the part. And then just start polishing it. Same approach, light on the hand, keep on moving constantly, and make sure you work that compound in the part basically. And after I'm done with that, again, I'm going with the vertical moves, making sure I keep the same pattern basically. And even at this point, I'm trying to avoid basically swirls. And there is one more step. You'll see me grabbing the second cloth that I have. I usually have it separate from the other one because I don't want to be having those particles and then reintroduce scratches on the part. And I'm kind of hand buffing the part right now, and then using the corners to clean the compound inside the section. And yeah, that's the first step of polishing. Now I just turn that pad a little bit more, and I'm applying the a fine scratch remover step. Same process. Spread that compound around on the part, turn on the lathe, and then I'll let the pad do the work for you, or the polish compound do the work for you. Don't press hard, just move your hand. What I like about this whole process, starting with the 320 grit, is that you slowly get to see how the part gets to be alive, I guess you could call it. It becomes shinier and shinier and shinier to the point where it's like glass, or at least to the naked eye it looks like glass. And now you get to see the actual sparkles coming through. At any point in this polishing process you can stop depending on the look you want. You can stop at this point. You don't have to do the extra thing that I do with the H2O guard and glass polish. You can even stop at the first one with the heavy scratch remover. It's just a matter of the look you want. Just that whatever you stop, make sure everything is uniform, looks exactly the same throughout the part, and that you don't have any actual visible scratches that stand out. And now the last step, the H2O. This polish always confuses my brain the hell out of it because it has a very pleasant smell to it, like the kind of smell that makes you want to drink it. So I have a lot of intrusive thoughts with this one. It's like, man, this thing smells so nice, I want to drink it. But I was like, no, that's poison, don't do that. So pay attention to that. Don't confuse your bottles. And yeah, that's the last stage, basically. Even on the last stage, I still do the vertical things. Probably not required, but again, I'm wired that way, I guess. And the last hand polish, and then I'm done. That's the part. Now when I'm hand polishing it, I do grip the part a little bit tighter and I do press a little bit harder. I work a little bit of heat in it. Don't go crazy though. And just cleaning up the threads. And that's the part. I'm trying to bring it as close as I can to the camera. Hard to see it in this one, but you've probably seen my past videos on how the parts look like, especially in the close-up shots. And that's the finish that I'm getting through this process that I'm making. Just test fitting the nib, making sure it sits nicely, and I didn't took too much material off to make it too thin. And yeah, I'm just putting it aside, grabbing the next session and do it all over again. Same process basically. And I'll come back when I get to the barrels. And yeah, now I am done with the section part basically. Just test fitting the nib unit, making sure everything is fine in there and everything still lines up and the nib unit buttons up nicely in there. And now I'm ready to start doing the barrel basically. I'm just gonna flip the mandrel, which is stuck in there, which is good. And I'm just gonna start with the blue barrel, I believe, yeah. And same process. The only difference now is that now is the time when I'm trying to make sure that the cap will post properly. I usually leave more material on the barrel so I can sand it down to the right size. So right now I'm just trying to bring the body to basically a uniform look to remove all the scratches that I might have. Like I mentioned, just lightly going through, keep on moving your hand and slowly, well, sand down. Pay attention to the end. Usually this is the time when you're going to introduce swirls without even knowing. Again, move your hand constant and you'll see when I do the vertical sanding or the against these circular swirls that I'm doing right now, I also make sure I touch the end. But right now just building the slush and slowly going through it. And again, on this case I have to pay attention to make sure I also hit properly the step down between the bottom of the barrel and the top of the barrel. Right now I'm doing the round off part where the section is, this way I have a smooth transition between section and barrel and it's nothing sharp and it's nice and pleasant to hold. And now I'm going vertical. And I'm kind of breaking down in two parts, the bottom part and the top part. It's easier to work on this part because it's not as small, it's much larger and much easier to work on. And I can wrap my fingers a little bit around the part. So doing the vertical movement is much easier. And I can cover more ground. Just make sure you overlap your strokes, right? And again, I'm touching the end a little bit without moving the part. That's important. At least from my case. Cleaning the part. And I'm gonna test fit the cap to see how it fits. And I'm gonna keep on doing this until the cap fits very snug on the barrel. Basically to the point where you kind of force push it on the barrel. And it's hard to remove it. Right now it doesn't look like it's working, so I need to sand down a little bit more. And I'm only touching the top part of the barrel. I'm not touching the bottom part because it's done already. I'm only focusing on making sure that cap posts. By the way, these strips, I usually flip them when I'm halfway through. So this way I get to use the entire strip, not just one side. And test fitting the cap again. Oh, I'm pretty much there. That's it. Sometimes, if you don't pay attention and you sneeze, and you take like 0.01 more than you should, that's it, you're done. Cap won't fit anymore, and you'll be loose and you won't really sit in snug. So that once that is done, once I get it to the right size where the cap is force pushed over the barrel, now I jump to the other size strip, and same process as I did with the section, just slowly building up through it, and make sure I touch up every single part that I touch up with the 320 grid size. The only good thing about it is that I don't have to spend as much time, because I paid attention on the first step and making sure everything gets sanded perfectly or as close to perfection as possible, and everything else will just go much smoother and faster from here on. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Not a lot going on. Just repeating more and more of the same process. Tedious. I usually do two fountain pens at the same time, and yeah, it takes me like 1 hour per pen to finish it. So that's why I kind of trimmed down this video. I didn't include the cap parts because it's exactly the same process as you see me doing here. It's just that I don't have to pay attention to anything. I just have to make sure I remove the scratches properly. That's it. Something that I'm doing right now, right? Not sure what else I can say or what I can think of to help you out. It will take some practice. It will take some patience. Probably a chair will help you. Personally, I don't like the chair, even though it will help me. My legs kind of start hurting after that much stand up. And but at the same time, I won't be able to have this bird eye view of the part and make sure that the light hits it properly. So yeah, I don't know. Do you see what works for you and experiment with what you have. Oh, if you want the matte color look and you're not trying to go for the shiny look, from my experience, I found out that you can stop sanding anywhere between 400 to 1000 grid size. It's all about the matte and the rough finish that you want to get out of the fountain pen. That's a preference, and that will be up to you. The only thing you have to really pay attention now is make sure that, again, there's no swirls in whatever step you stop at, and that everything is uniform. That's the only thing. And yeah, that's about it. I'll let these play with both barrels. Feel free to watch them, but it's same tedious process over and over again. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below, and if there's something that I missed, I will answer in your comments. And maybe in the future, maybe I can bring, if anybody's really interested and there's a lot of requests on that, maybe I can I find a way to mount my macro lenses and my beta camera and give you an even closer look of the whole process. So this way you see what my eyes see, going from that dull look all the way to, well, the shiny, almost like glass look to the naked eye finished product. Thanks for checking out the video. Feel free to watch it until the end if this process interests you and you like it, and ask your questions, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.